All right, so when I was putting this on, so you got this bolt right here. This is it's a long through bolt. This is the head on this side, on the left side. The other side's got the nut, so breaking it loose, you want to break it loose from the right side. Once you get that broke loose, this whole bolt right here, it'll pull all the way out. I wasn't quite sure if this was holding anything up structurally whenever I was taking it out, so what I done was this bolt that that comes with the crash cage, that real long one, it's the same size as this one, and if you have trouble getting it out, what you can do is you can take this bolt, put it in the other side once you get that nut off, and you can push this all the way through. I did that because, like I said, I wasn't sure if it was holding something up, so kind of, you know, keeping something in there. At one point in time, there wasn't nothing in there, and, you know, the motor didn't drop, or nothing really moved at all. So honestly, you don't really need to do that. As soon as you break that nut loose on the other side, you can just push it all the way through and leave it out for the time being. Anyhow, once you get the nut off on the other side, the right side of the crash cage is actually threaded. It's got a nut welded inside, so that nut that's on the other side you won't put back in, because that bolt's going to be a little too short in order to get that nut back on the other side, but you don't need it because the other one's already got a nut threaded in, so you're good on that. Anyhow, so once you get your fairings off, the bolt, that little hex head bolt right there, that is the black bolt that comes with the kit, and it'll actually replace the Allen head that's originally in there. That black bolt's a little bit longer, and you got to put a spacer and a washer in there, so it needs to be a little bit longer. That's why you have to replace it now what I had to do, you have to do the left side first, obviously, because that's a motor mount bolt right there. So when you take that one off, the factory one off, you leave the other side tight, and that holds the motor in its specific spot. If you take both of them out at the same time, the motor could shift, and then you probably have hell getting it back in and getting the bolt started, because that one doesn't thread into a nut, it actually threads into the motor itself. So anyway, so what I done was I had to actually start this one first. So I put the crash cage up there, and I actually put that bolt through here, because, well, actually, when I first did it, I mounted this mount, your motor mount bolt first, and I was having hell getting the long bolt that you reuse. I was having hell getting the head back in through here. It kind of hits right here, so I ended up having to take this motor mount bolt back off. I held this up with my knee, and then I actually put that long bolt in first, and that was the first bolt I put in. After that's in, it kind of held it in place, and then I was able to put the motor mount bolt in here. Now, that hex head bolt, it'll come with, it's got the bolt itself, then it's got just a flat washer, and then it's got a spacer, probably about that big. So the order I put it in from outside to in was I had the bolt, then I put the flat washer on the bolt, then I put the bolt through the crash cage itself, through the little oval hole in there, and then on the other side of that is where I put the spacer, and then I threaded it into the motor. Now at that point, what I done is I just snugged it up, left it loose enough that this could still kind of move, but snugged it up just enough where whenever I took the motor mount bolt on the other side, it still held the motor in place. And this bolt right here I put in right at the end. Actually, I think I'd done it once both sides were on. It was the last bolt I put through. And then the order I put this in, so you got your nylon lock nut, you got a small washer, then I put it through the crash cage, and then there's a big flat washer right in here. Without that, specifically on the left side, you got a gap, and it's going to take quite a bit to torque it down where they touch, so that big flat washer took up space. Now on the other side there was no gap, and when it was loose it looked like it was actually going to push on it too hard, and so I was a little worried about that, so I did the same exact order on the other side as well. When putting this on, obviously you got to do the left side first, and the reason being because this long bolt right here, it's just smooth on this side, just a smooth hole, and when you put it through, it'll shove all the way through. But on the other side, I'll come over here. On this side is where they got that nut welded in there. I don't know if you can see it or not, a little dark, but anyway, so that nut's welded in the inside. So once you get this one on, you have to hold this up there, and then from the other side you gotta thread it into here. A little bit of a pain in the ass. It wasn't too bad, but it takes some finagling. But then anyway, everything same order on this side, same hex head. I don't think you can see it on this side just because the fairings are a touch different. But that should be it. And whenever I torqued all of it down, I think I torqued them all down to about 35 foot-pounds, as per what that deal said. It's in Newton meters, but I done the math on it. It ended up being about roughly around 35 and a half foot-pounds. So I think I just done it all to 35. Yeah, anyway, so it wasn't too bad. Now, last thing I did have trouble with is once you get this fairing back on both sides, this bolt right here that holds your fairing in, well, one of them, on both sides, this rail right here got right in the way where I couldn't quite get an Allen head on there. And so what I ended up having to do was the Allen head that come in the kit, your toolkit in the back, I took it and I just took a cutting disc and kind of eyeballed, you know, what I would need gap wise in order to get that in there so that I could still tighten it up. And I just cut it where it was. So I pretty much just made a specific tool, you know, only for that bolt so that I could actually get it up in here. You kind of got to get it in an angle, but you can get it in there and you can tighten it, loosen it, do whatever you need to. And then, so once I got all that back on there, the very last thing I did is put these little pucks on there. And of course they just thread right into that cage in and of itself. So yeah, overall not overly bad, just directions didn't really tell you any of that. Pretty vague from what they said, so I just kind of had to figure it out on my own. But now the last thing I'll mention is the nut, the factory nut, that when you're taking this bolt loose, it's tighter than shit. It's because it's got a lock nut on it. And so it took a long handle 1/2-inch drive ratchet in order to break it loose. But it is doable once you get that nut side off. Obviously, if you try to loosen it from the head side, it's gonna be harder on that side. That's why I'd say break it loose from the right side of the bike and then push the bolt through the left side. Anyway, hope that helps.